1520, Stockholm. The square is alive with whispers of dread as dark clouds gather above. The stench of fear mingles with the crisp Scandinavian air, growing heavier with each passing moment. A crowd stands frozen, their faces pale and stricken, as the executioner's blade gleams under the waning sunlight. One by one, noble heads tumble to the cobblestones, the sickening thud punctuating the shocked silence. Blood pools like rivers of crimson, seeping into the cracks of Stockholm's ancient stone streets. At the center of this grim tableau stands Christian II, the self-proclaimed King of Sweden. Draped in regal finery, his cold, unflinching gaze betrays no emotion. The murmurs of protest and prayers for mercy fade into anguished sobs as he raises a gloved hand, signaling the next victim. Amid the horror, whispers ripple through the crowd, words of defiance, of hope. A name passes from trembling lips, quiet but insistent. Gustav Vasa. Some say he escaped the bloodbath, slipping through the chaos. Others believe he's already plotting revenge. Whatever the truth, his name lingers in the minds of the survivors, a symbol of rebellion yet to come. Gustav Vasa, the nobleman spared from the blade, flees into the countryside. Somewhere beyond the blood-soaked city, his journey begins, and with it, the seeds of an empire are sown. This is the rise of the Swedish Empire. The bloodbath has ended, but the weight of Danish rule remains heavy across Sweden. Christian II's iron grip tightens, his reign defined by fear and control. Farmers, their fields burdened by endless taxes, mutter curses under their breath as they break their backs to sustain a king they've never seen. Nobles, cowed by the fate of their kin in Stockholm, tread carefully, their resentment festering beneath false oaths of loyalty. The Kalmar Union, intended to unite Scandinavia, now binds Sweden with iron chains, choking its independence. Gustav Vasa is a fugitive, a man marked for death. He moves through the woods and snow-draped hills, hunted by Danish patrols and betrayed by those too fearful to offer shelter. Yet his determination burns brighter than the torches of his pursuers. He has no army, no title, and no home, but he carries with him a vision of freedom. Weeks of hardship bring him to Dalarna, the heart of Sweden's rugged interior. Here the land is harsh, its winters unforgiving, its people are fiercely independent. This is a place where survival breeds strength. Gustav knows he will find allies among these proud, resourceful farmers and miners. In village halls, lit by flickering firelight, Gustav speaks. His voice carries not just words, but a fire that ignites the weary hearts of his audience. He recounts the atrocities of Christian II, the bloodbath in Stockholm, the suffering of their people. He speaks of a future where Swedes rule their own lands, where no foreign king dictates their lives. How long will we bow to a foreign king? How long will we toil to fill the coffers of men who spill our blood? The time for waiting is over. The time for action is now. The room falls silent. Cheers erupt. Hardened men with soot-streaked faces and calloused hands rise, pledging their loyalty. The rebellion has found its leader. The frozen forests of Dalarna become a crucible of resistance. Gustav moves between villages, gathering followers and forging alliances. Each fiery speech brings new recruits, miners, farmers, hunters, all willing to fight for a Sweden free from Danish rule. As word spreads, his movement grows, defiant and unrelenting. But Christian II is no fool. Danish forces march north, determined to crush the rebellion before it takes root. Gustav and his men prepare for war, armed with little more than their courage and the belief that their cause is just. In the hills of Dalarna, amid the bitter cold and howling winds, the first sparks of Sweden's liberation catch fire. Gustav Vasa, the fugitive-turned-leader, stands ready to defy the might of an empire. His journey has only just begun. The winter of 1521 is brutal, but Gustav Vasa's rebellion burns bright. Across the frozen forests and icy lakes of Sweden, the call to arms echoes. Villagers sharpen scythes and swords, hunters offer their bows, and miners forge crude weapons from iron. Gustav leads them all from the front lines. They are all bound by one purpose: to drive the Danes from Swedish soil. Danish forces, well armed and disciplined, descend on the rebel strongholds, expecting easy victories. Instead, they find a people unwilling to break. Gustav's tactics are cunning, born of necessity. He avoids open battles, drawing the enemy into the forests where his men ambush them with arrows and axes. The Danes grow weary, their morale sinking as the rebels, driven by the dream of freedom, refuse to yield. By the summer of 1521, the rebellion swells. Gustav gathers his forces outside Stockholm, now under Danish control. Here, on the hills near Brunkeberg, he prepares for his greatest challenge. His men are outnumbered, poorly equipped and exhausted from months of fighting, but Gustav's resolve remains unshaken. Before the battle, Gustav rides before his troops, his voice cutting through the cold morning air. Brothers, today we fight not as peasants or miners, but as Swedes. Remember your families, your homes, the blood spilled by the Danes in Stockholm. This is our land, and we will not let them take it. Stand with me, and we will be free. The Battle of Brunkeberg erupts in chaos. The Danes, confident in their numbers, charge down the slopes, their armor gleaming in the sun. But Gustav's rebels fight with a ferocity born of desperation. Arrows rain down from the ridges, striking fear into Danish ranks. Farmers armed with pitchforks and scythes clash with professional soldiers, their war cries echoing across the battlefield. The fighting is brutal. The cost is high. Bodies litter the frozen ground, and the snow runs red with blood. Gustav himself takes to the fray, his banner a golden cross on a blue field, held high. His presence inspires his men, who press forward with unyielding determination. Finally, as dusk falls, the Danish lines waver. Exhausted and demoralized, they break and flee toward the city. The tide has turned. Over the next 2 years, Gustav's forces drive the Danes from Swedish territory. Christian II, once so feared, retreats to Denmark, his ambitions shattered. Across the countryside, jubilant peasants tear down Danish banners and raise the flag of Sweden. The long shadow of the Kalmar Union is lifted. June 6, 1523, Gustav Vasa is elected King of Sweden in a solemn ceremony at Strängnäs. As the crown is placed upon his head, the cheers of his people echo across the cathedral walls. For the first time in over a century, Sweden stands free, united under a Swedish king. As the applause fades and the crowd disperses, Gustav stands alone, gazing at the lands he has fought so hard to liberate. The chains of foreign rule are broken, and from the ashes of rebellion, a new Sweden rises. The rebellion is over, but Gustav Vasa's greatest challenge lies ahead. As Sweden's first independent king in over a century, he inherits a fractured land, scarred by war and weakened by centuries of foreign domination. To secure the nation's future, he knows Sweden must change, not just in governance, but in its very foundation. From his seat in Stockholm, Gustav begins to centralize power. Regional nobles, accustomed to wielding authority like kings in their own right, find themselves undercut as Gustav tightens his grip. Tax collectors, loyal only to the crown, fan out across the kingdom, ensuring that every copper coin flows into royal coffers. But Gustav's boldest move is against the Catholic Church. The Church holds vast lands and wealth, resources Gustav intends to reclaim for the state. Across the country, monasteries are emptied, their riches seized to fund Sweden's recovery. The once mighty bishops who had crowned and dethroned kings are stripped of their influence. Gustav stands before a council of bishops in Uppsala. The church has served its purpose, but now it hinders us. Its wealth will rebuild Sweden, its power will strengthen the crown, and its role will be one of faith, not governance. The Reformation sweeps through Sweden, with Gustav as its architect. Lutheranism becomes the state religion, tying the spiritual identity of the nation to its independence from Rome. With the church's lands funding a revitalized military and administration, Sweden begins to rise as a unified and formidable state. In the mines of Falun, workers toil to extract copper and iron, their efforts fueling Sweden's economy. Gustav fosters trade, encouraging merchants to expand Sweden's reach into the Baltic. The wealth from these industries strengthens the crown, allowing Gustav to modernize the kingdom's defenses and administration. By 1544, Gustav has transformed Sweden, but one crucial task remains: securing stability for generations to come. In a historic meeting of the Riksdag at Västerås, he declares the establishment of a hereditary monarchy, standing before a hall filled with nobles, clergy, and commoners. No longer shall this land be torn apart by squabbling over succession. The crown shall pass to my heirs, securing peace and unity for all Swedes. Let this be our legacy to the future. The assembly erupts in applause. For the first time, the Swedish throne is anchored not in the whims of power struggles, but in the stability of lineage. As Gustav ages, his vision for Sweden takes shape. A once divided nation now thrives with an efficient administration, a growing economy, and a burgeoning military. Copper and iron flow from Sweden's mines, filling the kingdom's coffers. 1561. The Baltic Sea roars against the shores of Livonia, its waves crashing with the fury of an unsettled age. Sweden, united and strengthened by the reforms of Gustav Vasa, now looks beyond its borders. The Livonian War, a maelstrom of ambition and desperation, has engulfed the fractured lands to the east. Denmark, Poland, Lithuania, and Russia fight for control. But amidst the chaos, Sweden sees opportunity. Reval, the prized port of Livonia, lies at the crossroads of commerce and conquest. For centuries, its harbors have connected the riches of northern Europe to the vast reaches of Russia. Tall walls, scarred by countless storms, rise above cobbled streets lined with merchant houses. The German burghers, weary of Russian aggression and the shifting tides of power, send envoys to Sweden with an offer: protection in exchange for loyalty. Sweden accepts. Troops march under banners of blue and gold, bringing order to a city on the brink of collapse. Reval's allegiance is sealed, and with it, Sweden gains more than a city. It gains the key to the Baltic. Yet Reval's strategic value draws envious eyes. Russia, under the iron rule of Ivan IV, known to history as the Terrible, views Sweden's expansion as an insult. The Tsar, determined to dominate the Baltic coast, sends his armies westward, their banners shadowed by the spectre of conquest. Swedish forces, hardened by years of struggle, meet them on frozen fields and forested hills. The war between Sweden and Russia becomes a bitter struggle. Swedish pikemen hold their lines against Russian cavalry charges, while iron cannon, cast in the forges of central Sweden, thunder across the snowy plains. Neither side yields easily, and the lands of Livonia bear the scars of fire and blood. Control of Reval marks a turning point. Sweden, once a fractured nation under foreign domination, now asserts itself as a rising power in Northern Europe. But with power comes danger, and the rivalry with Russia ensures that peace will remain elusive. The Baltic winds carry whispers of battles yet to come. Sweden, forged by rebellion and tempered by Gustav Vasa's vision, marches toward a future of expansion and ambition. Its grip on the Baltic tightens, its enemies bristle, and its destiny begins to unfold with unrelenting force. 1592. Sweden stands at a crossroads. Decades of consolidation and expansion have transformed the kingdom into a formidable power, yet its foundations tremble under the weight of a fractured crown. The death of King John III ushers in the reign of his son, Sigismund III of Vasa, a man whose destiny is bound to two thrones and two conflicting worlds. Sigismund, Catholic king of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, now ascends to the Protestant throne of Sweden. His rule embodies contradiction, a monarch caught between the devout Catholicism of his Polish subjects and the unyielding Lutheran faith of his Swedish kingdom. To many Swedes, Sigismund is an outsider, his Catholicism a threat to the hard-won Reformation that Gustav Vasa had etched into the nation's soul. Tensions simmer as Sigismund governs Sweden from afar, his attention consumed by Poland's sprawling and fractious lands. In his absence, Protestant nobles and clergy in Sweden grow restless. They whisper of betrayal, of a king who places his Polish subjects above his Swedish crown. The clergy, guardians of Sweden's Lutheran faith, accuse Sigismund of plotting to return Sweden to Rome's embrace. These suspicions come to rise in 1598. Charles, Duke of Södermanland, Sigismund's Protestant uncle, leads the charge against the king. A seasoned politician and military leader, Charles rallies the nobility, claiming to defend Sweden's Protestant identity against Sigismund's perceived Catholic ambitions. War becomes inevitable, and the armies of Sweden march toward a fateful clash. The Battle of Stangbro unfolds under a grey September sky. Soldiers clash on the banks of the Stang River, their cries mingling with the clash of steel and the roar of cannon. The air is thick with smoke, obscuring the chaos as Sigismund's forces struggle to maintain cohesion. At the heart of the battle, Charles rallies his troops, his presence a beacon of resolve amidst the turmoil. His pikemen hold their ground, and his cavalry strikes with precision. Sigismund's forces, demoralized and outmaneuvered, begin to falter. A desperate attempt to regroup collapses into a chaotic retreat, sealing the king's fate. By 1599, the conflict reaches its conclusion. Sigismund is formally deposed, stripped of his Swedish crown. The Riksdag declares his line unfit to rule, ending the union between Sweden and Poland. Charles IX ascends to the throne, his reign heralded as a victory for Protestant Sweden and a turning point in the kingdom's history. The deposing of Sigismund is more than a political shift. It is a defining moment for Sweden. The kingdom's Lutheran identity, forged in the fires of the Reformation, emerges stronger than ever. With Charles IX at the helm, Sweden embarks on a new chapter, one of unrelenting ambition and imperial greatness. The Baltic winds howl once more, carrying the echoes of Sweden's past and the promise of its future. A crown divided has given way to a nation unified in purpose, its sights set firmly on the horizon. From the blood-soaked streets of Stockholm to the windswept shores of Estonia, the seeds of an empire were sown. Sweden, once fractured and subjugated, had risen through fire and defiance. The reforms of Gustav Vasa, the victories in Livonia, and the struggles against internal division had forged a nation tempered like steel. The deposing of Sigismund marked not just the end of a divided crown, but the beginning of an unshakable purpose. Under Charles IX's rule, Sweden solidified its identity as a Protestant bastion, its destiny entwined with the currents of the Baltic. The power struggles of the late 16th century had pruned the nation, leaving only its strongest roots. The 17th century looms. In the decades to come, Sweden will ascend to the heights of European power under Gustavus Adolphus, the Lion of the North. A brilliant tactician and visionary leader, he will take the reforms of his forebears and transform Sweden into an empire whose reach extends across the battlefield and into the halls of diplomacy. The Baltic, long a contested frontier, will become a Swedish domain, its winds carrying the echoes of cannon fire and the banners of conquest. The armies of Gustavus Adolphus will march not as mere soldiers, but as architects of a new order, reshaping the balance of power in Europe.